welcome to the program. I'm Miriam Korowa. When Canberra was settled as the Australian capital, it was done as a compromise between Sydney and Melbourne. But for Indigenous people, the arguments over who holds claim to that land are still going on. The current ACT government has recognised the Ngunnawal people as the traditional owners, a decision resisted by those identifying as Ngambri people. And just to complicate the issue even more, there's also a third claimant to the title from the lesser-known Narrogoo tribe. Confused? Kate Evans explains.
And I love walking in the bush in Namadgi National Park because you can still feel that spiritual connection with the land because you know that this is where your ancestors roamed and did initiations and ceremonies and only for them, I wouldn't be alive sitting here today talking.
Ellen Mundy has been fighting a lone crusade against the ACT government for years, trying to get her tribe, the Narrogoo, recognised alongside the Ngunnawal as traditional owners of the ACT.
We've been screaming for 20 years and I've tried every avenue, tried writing letters, native title claims, injunction orders, painting signs. Now all of them weren't done because I felt like doing it because I was a radical idiot, protesting. I'd done it to be listened to be trying to be heard. So, hey, we're still here.
In what she says is a final attempt, she's now taking the ACT government to court. Ms Mundy and her lawyers claim she has been discriminated against, saying that by not recognising the Narrogoo as traditional owners, the government has denied Ms Mundy assistance with protecting and promoting the culture, heritage, language and artefacts of the Narrogoo people.
The Narrogoo sites lie within traditional boundary that would take us in Namadgi National Park and Canberra. So therefore I still have a right, which I said in part of my heritage rights with Narrogoo, to have a say and protect them site.
But the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs, Joy Birch, says the government is still considering Ellen Mundy's claim.
Well, I do recognise the Ngunnawal people, but I'm also very respectful and recognise our broader Aboriginal community and people within the region. Many, many years ago, there was no artificial borders around the ACT. There are now. But also we know that there were many groups, language groups and family groups that moved through this area. This is part of an ongoing conversation and I'm quite happy to meet with the Narrogoo people and Ellen Mundy if that's what she wishes.
First of all, may I pay tribute to the Ngunnawal people, the traditional owners of the land on which we gather.
I want to begin by acknowledging the Ngunnawal people.
I am pleased to begin by acknowledging the Ngunnawal people on whose land we meet.
Ms Mundy objects to official ceremonies that only refer to the Ngunnawal people and to these signs erected by the ACT government, which she admits to having defaced in the past.
We don't need a signage to define our country because most Aboriginal boundaries were defined by river and ranges and language, not by signage.
So why are they such a problem for you?
Well, it's in your face, sort of. So it is like a constant reminder that the Narrogoo aren't been recognised. It's your name's Gemma, but Jemima was your great-great-grandmum.
Ellen Mundy grew up in the Bega Valley and says her particular Narrogoo clan is from the southern part of the Monero. But she says her parents and grandparents told her the Narrogoo language and sacred sites extended all the way to the ACT.
I've always heard stories about the Monero and as far as Canberra and Namadgi National Park. It is my identity. I am Narrogoo before I'm Aboriginal. Aboriginal's just a, made-up gibberish English word that just describes anybody that are an Aboriginal native from any country, anywhere in the world. So it is important for every traditional owner in Australia to understand your true identity and your bloodline.
Ms Mundy's lawyers say her case is bolstered by a document reviewing the anthropological evidence that was commissioned by the ACT government in the late 1990s. It says,
"The common practice of speaking as if Canberra and the ACT were identical has facilitated the Ngunnawal identity being extended to the whole of the ACT. According to Tyndale's map, much of the ACT is Walgaloo, and a small portion possibly Narragaw. Linguistically, Canberra is not even in the Ngunnawal area, but probably falls within the Narragaw area. None of the applicants, as far as we're aware, is claiming a Narragaw identity.
Defining the traditional owners of the ACT has been a vexed issue for some time.
What's this, Steve?
It's a court order. An injunction stopping you from using the double N.
Go and get stuck, y'all. Chris. We now pronounce this. We're in Ngunnawal country.
I would like to welcome you here today to the land of my ancestors, the land of the Ngambri people.
A third group, the Ngambri, also claim they are the sole legitimate traditional owners of the ACT. But that's another story. The ACT government has officially recognised only the Ngunnawal claim, with 2 N's, since 2002.
This is part of a conversation that's begun over a decade ago in a former government's tenure.
The former Chief Minister and Minister for Aboriginal Affairs, John Stanhope, was adamant the government only recognised the Ngunnawal. But the new Minister, Joy Birch, is less definitive.
Well, at the moment, an agreement that has lasted nearly a decade, we have recognised the land as Ngunnawal land. But we also recognise that there are broader communities here that recognise a connection themselves of their families to this land. This is why we've embarked on a very strong family history project that will look at all the primary source data and family conversations and oral history to map this out.
She says that project includes the Narragaw families.
If it does show that the Narragaw have a strong claim, would you consider recognising them formally as well as the Ngunnawal?
Look, it's something like this, it's very hard to rule in or rule out, and I think that just highlights the absolute complexity of it.
This is the place where our ancestors used to pick grassy, right here in the ACT, and that's all that area over there, mountain, that's where they used to roam. I know who I am, I know my bloodline, and I know that I'm Narragaw and who we descend from.
From expensive mobile phone contracts to excessive video fines, legal aid groups say dodgy businesses are exploiting Indigenous Australians. The country's consumer watchdog says it's about to crack down on the practice.
In many remote parts of the Northern Territory, English is the 3rd or 4th language spoken. So when salespeople ring public phones in remote communities to sell loans, cars or mobile contracts, the real cost is often lost in translation.
It's difficult to say whether those the terms of those contracts or the way that they're entered into is dodgy by design or whether our clients are just particularly vulnerable.
Legal aid groups in Central Australia deal with the problem on a daily basis. They say most of the contracts are torn up as soon as there's a legal challenge. But thousands of people try to meet their debts, even those who are welfare dependent and live in the poorest parts of the country.
And that puts them and their families into significant hardship.
The new head of the ACCC has used his first trip to the Territory to condemn the practice. He says the consumer watchdog is going to increase its presence in remote Australia.
We're going to be trying to get out to the communities more, establish links with communities, target particular individuals we can work with in communities.
In recent years, the ACCC won a court case against a lawyer who was sending out excessive video fines and stopped demand from marketing non-existent educational resources. But legal groups say the watchdog needs to take on many more cases if it's to rub out the practice completely.
It's the bringing together of the old and the new to get a message across to a younger generation. An ancient story from Arnhem Land has been transformed into an animated short film. And with traditional languages becoming almost extinct in several remote Aboriginal communities, the film is seen as a way of preserving the past. Here's Emma Masters.
It's an ancient story being told with state-of-the-art technology.
It tells the journey of the turtles and the osprey over country, over the islands, through the sea.
The film is an Aboriginal dreaming story from the northwest Gulf country. The elders wanted to engage young people as well as preserve local knowledge and the Yanyuwa language. There are now only 5 women who speak the language fluently.
Those old people are really worried about what is it that they can give to their younger people? How can they pass on knowledge to the younger people?
It's a fantastic way of getting kids enthusiastic about the old stories and that knowledge, and that will hopefully help us all look after country better.
Anthropologists and animators worked with the local people to help tell their story. The animation was made using the same technology as the blockbuster Avatar. Some parts of the film are quite graphic. But the filmmakers make no apology.
The basis we work on are the original narratives that were told by the elders, the way that they used to tell the stories. So we don't cut anything out. They're the way that the stories were always told.
The film has been so well received, another is already in production.
The new Aussie Rules team from Australia's largest remote Aboriginal community is fighting to get a leg up into the Territory's Premier League. But it could be a tall order. The Wadeye Magic isn't lacking in talent or commitment, just height. So now the search is on to find some big men to make them competitive in the big league. Anna Henderson reports.
Not short on talent,
Pop the Wadeye Magic! We'll bring the rain down!
but Wadeye Magic's players aren't quite reaching their potential.
Clearly, we know we're probably a fairly short side.
Australia's largest remote Aboriginal community has fielded a team in the Northern Territory AFL competition for the first time this year. They've been placed in Division 1 but want to make the Premier League next season. They'll need a boost to get there.
We've got a guy that's 5'10", rucking against a guy that's about 6'5" today, so we hardly won a tap.
Height hasn't been the only stumbling block coming from a community that's been divided by violence in the past.
I think the reason fighting stopped is because we got this footy team happening, and it's really exciting that I see all the boys going in, having a good time.
The freshly printed team merchandise is now on the shelves in Wadeye's stores. And player Murphy Longmare says the team is inspiring people.
We're changing this community, Wadeye.
It's a long way to go for a footy game, but every week more Wadeye locals are making the pilgrimage to the sidelines in Darwin.
I don't go much in Darwin, but we are watching it on the TV.
As Wadeye Magic keeps notching up first-grade wins, the tall player recruitment drive has started. Only those above 6'2" need apply.
Go, Wadeye!
That's all for this episode of the Indigenous Quarter. Thanks for joining me and goodbye for now.